Is
What's happening, dude?
what's going on? Hopefully, like I said, if you people following along here, have anything with issues with audio or anything, please let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah, I was rolling around. Like I said last week, you sounded perfect to me. We were having a great
Well, that's
conversation.
good. As long as you and I had a good time, that's it.
Yeah,
It's
you and I,
something, right?
you and I had a great conversation. Unfortunately, nobody else could hear it, but
Nice. It was good though. Quality time.
So-
I enjoyed it.
with Ventus TR, what's the big difference between, give us a little insight. What's the big difference between the Ventus models and the Ventus TR models?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. We can actually start with TR Blue since it came first, and I'll give you a little bit of a backstory about how we came to where we got to with that product. And following up the Ventus line is absolutely a challenge. It's one of the most successful, if not the most successful parts in our entire company history, which we're super proud of, but that definitely gives us a big challenge when we're ready to do something new. So really, we went back to the drawing board a little bit, and we solicited our charter dealers, our fitters, the PGA Tour players, global tour players, good amateurs, and we said, all right, if we could make an improvement on this part, is there anything that you would like to see a little bit differently? And we did receive a little bit of feedback, especially in the original Blue profile, that the handle section was a little softer. Not too soft, but just a little softer than expected, especially for the higher ball speed players. So we took that, we went back to Enzo Analytics, and we started slowing things down to thousandths frame per second. And we said, hey, look at that. The shaft actually does take on excess sort of bend and stress in this really specific section. We call it the mid-handle section. And if we could find a way to reinforce that, we could make a platform that's that much more stable, that much more stable feeling, more accurate, and we're still utilizing VeloCore technology, which we find is our best platform for overall stability. But if we could tweak that, enhance it that much more, that was kind of the goal behind that product. And then as we start to explore ways to do that, we start to look at things like exotic materials and what are some materials that we can use that take on a lot of stress and strength but don't have a lot of overall weight to them as well, because we don't want to throw off the balance point of the shaft. And that's where we kind of landed on this ultra high modulus carbon spread toe fabric. And we integrate that into the mid-handle section on a TR part, and that's the big change between a TR Ventus and a regular Ventus, is that we do integrate this added material. And what it does is increases torsional stiffness in that area, and we're always trying to reduce unwanted twists as best we possibly can. Makes the shaft that much more stable and more responsive and more accurate. So that was kind of the catalyst for Blue. And then we saw a lot of success with it. We got a lot of really positive feedback. And then as we do anytime we integrate a new technology, the question becomes, well, can we make this in other profiles as well?
Yep.
So we definitely wanted to. We definitely had that idea of we want to put this in a higher launching product. We want to put this in a low launching product. But we took our time and we were very diligent about doing it right. And we wanted to make sure that integrating this material really did make a difference. It really did help. And so when we rolled out red and black, we were psyched at the results. It produced the same sort of consistency gains that we saw with TR Blue. Players gravitated towards it right away in testing. They really enjoyed the feel, really liked the overall profile. They're actually launching on tour, the PGA Tour this week. So we've got a lot of guys out there trying them this week. So it's a great 3-profile lineup. It will accompany the Ventus line. So I don't want anyone to think that Ventus is going away.
Yep.
Ventus is now a 6-part family. And what the TRs do is it really takes Ventus and just sort of tweaks it and changes it and elevates it a notch. And now you basically have a new profile of red, blue, and black that have very similar feel to the original red, blue, and black, but with reduced launch, a little bit of reduced spin, and a little bit stiffer overall profile. So we're really kind of rounding out the entire line to fit just about every player, and we feel really good with the options that we have. It's been great.
So you made a good point. Like, you did all this research on this shaft. I mean, using Enzo, which is, your guys' high-speed camera system, which is absolutely insane. If you've ever had the been fortunate enough to be over in the Fuji headquarters and seen the room with all the high-speed cameras.
It's pretty cool.
But to say, that you're seeing these parts of the shaft that have, stress on them, or they are, bending or twisting in a way that you find that, we can improve on that. It's very interesting. You mentioned that, as you improve these things, you do have to worry about weight and the balance points of the shaft and all that, because you can't just go and I guess you could just, in a sense, go and just throw a bunch of, wraps of carbon around there and just say, hey, it's done. But then, like you said, the shaft is going to feel and play totally different than it would have if you didn't use kind of like this lightweight spread toe material, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's a great point. And our engineering team has a kind of a phrase for this. They basically say, we're making a cake. And the idea is to just create the best combination of ingredients that we can make the best cake with. So if we're going to increase torsional stability in certain parts, we have to be conscious of the fact that we might have to back off stiffness in other parts or gain stiffness in other parts, and that can lead to, the way we design shafts overall, the way we lay up materials, all those things kind of go into consideration. So you make a great point. I wish it was just as easy as just putting some material on the top, because that would definitely get you what you wanted, but you start to, affect a lot of things. And one thing we're really proud about at Fujikura is we love to hear players tell us that they love the feel of our golf clubs, of our shafts. And that's a big driving force what we do. We want to be able for a shaft to have the highest level of performance, but we want it to feel good to a player as well. So those are things that we have to take into account when we add material and we change designs. And so it's a very diligent process that we go through when we come up with something new. And when we get it out there in the marketplace and players kind of, write us back and say, hey, this thing feels awesome and it's going really straight. That's really what we like to hear. That's a good thing.
And speaking of feel, Thomas Bishop _Brian 1995, long name, but hey, basically asked, does the black TR have good feel to it? He said, some people that he's talked to worried about it, being a little bit stiffer profile than traditional Ventus black. Is it still going to have a good feel to it? And I personally could say that it does.
You've hit it. You tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it actually does. I mean, I was really worried a little bit about that too, because I am kind of on that guy, as you and I have talked before. I swing an X because I hit it a left a lot, but I probably could get away with a stiff in certain profiles. Like I'm not kind of the in-betweener guy, especially as I've gotten older and a little slower. The black, I was shocked. I mean, even in the 6X, it does take, for me, a lot to load it. But it isn't harsh. It really does have a smooth feel, and when you do load it and at impact, it has a decent kick to it. And yes, it is stout. I mean, it does take a little bit more than regular black to get it to load on that downswing, but it definitely isn't harsh from my opinion.
Yeah, and I would tell you, I know this is kind of a vague answer, but I'll lead with feel is a pretty subjective thing, right? It's a little bit different for everybody, which is totally cool, and that's why we have so many different profiles that have different feel components to them. But what's interesting about the TR Black is, yes, it is a stiffer profile overall. It is stiffer, we can say stiffer than Ventus Black. But I have had a lot of people reach out, and our team has had a lot of people reach out and say they really like the feel of it. Some people actually prefer it to the original. Again, that's just personal preference. But we are cognizant of the fact that when we made the TR Black, and we wanted a very stiff, low launching profile for this kind of more aggressive transitions and higher ball speeds, that at the same time, it does have to have some feel to it. And it's an interesting sort of pocket to be in, because that style of player doesn't want a tremendous amount of motion, generally speaking, and a lot of movement in the shaft. So, kind of walk this fine line of, do we just make a piece of rebar, or do we do something with some feel to it? And we leaned more on the feel side. And what we're pumped about is that we have a product that's very, very stable. It produces the results we want as far as a low launch, low spin, sort of aggressive swinger shaft, but it does have some feel to it. So, I think we did a great job with the product. Super proud of our team, and I think players are really going to like it.
Yeah, says the black TR seems way different than the OG black to me. Don't know why. And I think it's that spread tone. I think it's like you mentioned, that reinforcement section. Because I think on all three shafts, I've had the pleasure of hitting all six. And I think, to go back to what he's saying, where they feel different, they definitely do. I think TR red feels different than, original red, and blue feels definitely different than original blue. And the same with black. And I think they are all six different profiles that do feel different than, they're not the same shaft. It's not like you took black and just said, oh, it's, a little bit lower launching and spinning, and that's it. Like, it is a little different feel, and I think that reinforcement does change a little bit of that feel, and players will notice that.
I would confirm 100%. It is an added material to change in feel, to change in flex, and also a little bit what I alluded to earlier that I can't give too much detail on, too much under the hood, but we take things into account about where we need to back off and increase stiffness to compensate for things that we're changing and moving around. So while the DNA is very similar to original black, with that integration of new material and sort of the changes and tweaks that we make to the profile overall to make it perform the way we want it to perform, it's a different part. And that's kind of why it warrants its own name, and it's kind of its own slot in our lineup, is that there's definitely similarities there. It's kind of the same pool of player, but it's tweaked, it's elevated, it's changed, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think that actually transitioned into another question here that's really good, because I think it kind of answers a little bit of that, and we can expand on a little more. But Christian McClung said, if I took a Ventus Black and tipped it, would it be similar feel and outcome to TR? And I don't think it is. I think it's a different feeling shaft throughout the whole swing. Like I said, as you take it away, as you transition into the downward part of the swing, and even at impact, it feels different than Ventus Black. So I think even if you tipped a black and, or went with a heavier weight and tipped it and all that, Could you maybe get the launch and spin down? I mean, maybe. Yep. I don't know, but it's going to feel like a totally different shaft. I mean, TR and black, TR black and black are different profiles, no matter if you tip it or not.
You're 100% right. And there's a component to tipping as well. You know, players are trying to achieve sometimes in between flexes by tipping, and they're trying to, you know, change certain ball flight characteristics or certain field characteristics. But you make a great point. If you're sort of trying to attempt to make one part another part, I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to try the other part first and then sort of meet in the middle with where you want to be.
Yeah. No. Just because a shaft is, you know, say a little bit lower launching, a little bit lower spinning or whatever, doesn't mean that you can't use it in a fairway. I mean,
100% true.
The head may truly determine during your fitting, the head may truly determine that, you know what, it launches the ball with enough spin and actually lets, you know, flatten it out just a touch. So as much as I think people kind of pigeonhole red as the fairway shaft, I think, you know, all 6 really have a shot, especially now with, you know, people moving to a lot of 5, 7, and even 9 woods going into these bags.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about it being a high launching profile. I think you'll see a lot as players start to test and experiment with these golf clubs that what we may see on paper as being a profile that would create a higher launch and higher spin rate can be very different from player to player based on how they deliver the club. So it's one thing that we always preach here is get fit, get out, try things, you know, go through the motions. And the other thing to keep in mind is when we say that these are higher launching parts, keep in mind that that's higher relative to the family that they behave in, right? So if you're looking at a blue, a black, and a red, yes, red's probably going to be the highest launching of the group, but I wouldn't necessarily pigeonhole Ventus red or TR red as a high launching shaft. That just sort of fits as the highest in that certain family group that it sits in. So try everything. Give it a shot. I've seen cool things happen.
Well, that's it. Like I said, I've read so many things and went into, you know, a certain shaft when I took it out to try it and said, oh, it's going to be this and this is how it should be, and then it ends up being a little different. Like for me, a perfect example was Speeder NX. You know, Speeder NX was kind of touted as kind of a mid-high launch, kind of mid-spin shaft, right about if you go on, you know, FujikuraGolf.com, that's kind of how it is.
Yep.
I put it in 3-wood, and it's really more of like a little bit almost mid to mid low for me. It flies a little flatter than I expected it to go. And it was kind of a shock. I thought it was going to get up in the air super quick and kind of have this high launch and, you know, real, you know, steep angle of attack or descending angle. And it didn't. It was really flat and kind of flew, you know, more like a Ventus black to me. And I was kind of shocked because that's not how it reads on paper.
Yeah, and then even, you know, one step above that is when you start to consider weight and flex as well. So when you start getting into 70-gram or 80-gram parts and you get into tipped S's or X flexes and things like that, you know, inherently you're going to see ball flight kind of come down a little bit. So, you know, it's a little bit of a juggling act to say a shaft is going to do X, Y, Z. What we use it for in the marketing side is really more education to give customers a baseline of this is kind of where the parts fall in the lineup. And that's really our segue into the big but, which is you got to get out and try it if you can.